Once a pesticide is used in a cropping system, the restrictions on the label must be followed not only for the original crop it is used on, but also for any future crops until all restrictions on that label have been met. One of these restrictions that affect future crops is called the plantback restriction, or sometimes also called rotational crop restrictions. Plantback restrictions exist for two reasons. One, to avoid carryover pesticide injury from the current crop to the next crop, such as with herbicides, and two, to protect humans and livestock from elevated levels of pesticide residues that the next crop may accumulate. Herbicide labels typically list plantback restrictions to prevent crop injury. These restrictions are less common with insecticides and fungicides, but they do exist. Plantback restrictions are most important to soil-applied pesticides. This information is usually found in the General Directions for Use section listed before the crop-specific directions. On a pesticide label, plantback restrictions may be crop-specific. They can also include crops not listed, but rather referred to as all other crops. Let's look at two hypothetical situations when applicators have to be very cautious about the plantback restrictions. Maria grows vegetables on the California Central Coast. The field where she planted celery last March was known to have a lot of problems with annual broadleaf weeds and yellow nutsedge. A pest control advisor, PCA, recommended an application of Caparol 4L at the rate of 3.2 pints per acre as a single pre-transplant application. Following the label, Maria applied Caparol exactly 1 month before transplanting celery seedlings. The celery will be harvested 4 months after transplanting. Now, spend a few moments reading the Caparol 4L label and determine which from the following crops Maria can plant after the celery is harvested and which ones she can't plant because of the plantback restrictions. Let's check how you did. Maria will harvest celery 5 months after the application of Caparol. She can safely plant cabbage, celery, onion, and red beets. According to the 24C or SLN for transplanted celery in California, these crops may be planted 5 months after applying no more than 4 pints of Caparol 4L per acre on celery. Now, let's talk about cilantro and lettuce and why Maria cannot plant them right after celery harvest. These crops are not mentioned explicitly in the plantback restrictions on either the SLN or the full label. Therefore, they fall into the all other crops category. They can only be planted 12 months after applying Caparol. In the second hypothetical case, Fernando planned a crop rotation of a specific variety of corn, followed by forage oats and then sunflower in the next spring. The corn was sprayed with Rely herbicide a week after emergence. Unfortunately, the corn was totally lost due to armyworms just 1 week later. Now, review the Rely label and help Fernando plan his next steps. 1. Can Fernando proceed with his plan to plant oats after the lost corn crop? 2. Can Fernando replant the corn? And 3. How long will Fernando need to wait before he can safely plant sunflowers? Let's check to see if you are correct. The corn crop was sprayed with Rely herbicide 1 week after emergence and destroyed 1 week after that application. Oats are listed among the rotational crops on the Rely label. The Plantback restriction for oats is 70 days from the date of application. To plant oats, Fernando will have to wait 70 days after the application, which is about 63 days after his corn crop was lost. However, he can replant corn immediately. Sunflower is not specifically listed as a rotational crop on the Rely label. Therefore, it falls into the All Other Crops category, and the Plantback restriction is 180 days from the date of the application. What happens if the specific crop is not mentioned in the Plantback restrictions on the label, or when no Plantback restrictions are given for any crop? Can it be assumed that no Plantback restrictions apply? According to EPA, if a pesticide is registered on an agricultural crop and there are no restrictions on the product label concerning when rotational crops may be planted or any other planting restrictions intervals, such as a crop failure, then it would not be a violation of FIFRA to plant new crops at any time. That means if the specific crop is not mentioned in the Plantback restrictions on the label, or if no Plantback restrictions are given for any crop, then you can plant that crop with no restrictions. And there is one more case worth mentioning involving cover crops. Cover crops are planted to improve soil health, add nutrients, or suppress weeds. They're not harvested for food or feed. The cover crop stays in the field and may be incorporated into the soil. Some commonly used herbicides do not give Plantback restrictions for cover crops. But notice that if you harvest it or allow your animals to graze, it is no longer considered a cover crop. It is a forage crop, and label restrictions such as grazing interval must be followed. Remember, always read the label first before making any pesticide application. Keep the label even when you finish a pesticide. You may need it to verify Plantback restrictions in case of unexpected situations.